Hello and welcome back to the Reapers. Today we're looking at our A-4E, the Skyhawk, and setting up the controls. Just my usual things I'm going to say. I am going to show you how I set the controls up on my stick, which is an Cytec X56 Rhino. You will probably have something different. In that case, what I'm going to do, as I bind the controls, the actions to my various controls on my HOTAS, I'll explain where I'm binding them on the HOTAS, and then you can match that as closely as you can if you like to get as close to what I've got. And the most important thing I'm really showing you is which commands, which actions need to be bound to the HOTAS. As well as that, just the general comment I always make that if you have lots of different planes, then you want to keep your controls as uniform as possible between the different planes. So if you've got, I don't know, a wheel brake button that you set on your HOTAS for the Skyhawk, then set it for all of the other planes to keep it as uniform as possible. So let's get started. From the main menu, we're going to go to Options. Then from System to Controls. Then on the left here, we're going to click on our A4E, there it is, just under the A10s in alphabetical order. And this, how this works is you get the action here in this column here, and there will be hundreds of different actions, but we'll just generally need between about 10 to 20 depending on which aircraft that we're doing. We need about 15 on this aircraft. Category there is which category the action lies in, which keyboard key we've got set here to that action, which left HOTAS we've got set to that action. When we say HOTAS left, HOTAS right, HOTAS, a HOTAS is where you have a control stick on one side for your right hand, a thrust stick on your left hand for the left side. The left side of the HOTAS is the thrust stick side, the right side of the HOTAS is the control stick side. And this column here is the right HOTAS, the control stick side. If you have foot pedals as well, then they'll probably go in that next column there, but I don't have foot pedals. Let's get started. I always get started, and I'm going to go through the categories with this guy here on axis commands. I keep everything as uniform as I can in the axis commands. I've already got my controls set, obviously, because I've been using it, so we're just going to tape over the top of them. First thing we want is zoom view. Very difficult to fly or bomb or do things without zoom view. So I've got a knob on the top right of my left HOTAS thrust lever, and I'm going to set this knob to the zoom view. Double click on this left HOTAS column there. I'm going to turn it right, turn it left, and it's picked it up, and then we can test it. It's got it there. Next we need our thrust. We've only got a single engine. We're going to want that on the left HOTAS thrust lever, obviously, so we're going to click that, move the thrust lever forward, move it back, picked it up, test it. Lovely. Next, axis, we want the rudder. We're going to move that too. You will probably have rudder pedals, which you can bind to it in a separate column, but I've got the twist grip on my joystick I'm going to use, so I'm going to go to the right HOTAS here, double click on the relevant line, twist the stick left, twist it right. It's picked it up. Test it. Neutralize it. Then, if it's a rudder or roll or pitch, we need to do an axis tune, so we're going to do axis tune here. And we'll need to add some curvature to it. This adds, well, I'll show you what it does in a second, but my curvature I always add is 25. That's just specific for me. You being a different person and having a different joystick may want something different, but what I say is try and keep them uniform across your planes, otherwise it just gets a little more complicated. And what this does, if you have small movements of the stick like that, it increases the resolution, the detail you can get in the small movements, and decreases the detail you get in the large movements like that. And that helps you with things like formation flying, air-to-air refueling and stuff, because you need smaller movements, and also you very rarely actually use large movements of the stick. And the same is going to go for the roll and the pitch. Okay, and we're going to go for roll, double click right HOTAS, going to move stick left, going to move it right, it's picked it up. Okay, test, neutralize, axis tune, and again we want 25 curvature. Okay, pitch, stick forward, stick backwards. Okay, test, and neutralize, and axis tune. One little problem is the little dots, the red dot is outside of the dead square black square at the moment. That means that the stick's not centering itself quite correctly. The reason is it's just old and a bit knackered, so what we're going to do is add a bit of dead zone to make sure that area where that red dot is in the dead zone, i.e. where it's issuing no input, no pitch input when the stick is in neutral. So what we've done is we've neutralised that bit of inaccuracy, and as well our usual 25 curve. Okay, that's the axis done. Next we're going to move on to the more binary commands, buttons, the on-off type buttons on the left HOTAS first of all. We're going to go here and we're going to go to search. Okay, so the first thing is I've got a button on the front left of the thrust stick left HOTAS, and I always use it for my countermeasures. It's a two-way up and down button, so I'm going to type in here countermeasures, and we're going to come up with the two commands we want. countermeasure power here, which I'm going to set to the down command. I'd usually use that for chaff. So left HOTAS, double click there. And then the countermeasures release. This will release flares and chaff, or either of them, depending on how we set it up. And I'm going to have that as my up movement on that button, which is my usual flare button. That's that done. Next, we're going to go for flaps. This is a little bit more complicated than it needs to, but in the search, we're going to type flaps. The best thing I found to set is flaps down, else stop HOTAS, and flaps up, else stop HOTAS. Okay, for a two-way button. So I've got a two-way button here. Now, the interesting thing is the flaps down version here seems to be back to front with the up, at least at the time of making this video. It may well get corrected later on. So I had to purposely set it the wrong way around. So the down here, I'm actually going to use the up button on my switch, and I should say the switch is on the right lower side of the thrust lever of the left HOTAS. Okay, and then I'm going to have the flaps up as the down movement. I know that sounds weird, but that's the only way I could get it to work. Like I said, little bug or something like that at the moment. That's the flaps all done. That's all you need. That will work perfectly now. You've got an F key you can use there, but I'm telling you what you can bind to the HOTAS and what I think you should bind. Air brake, type brake. We've got air brake on and air brake off. Very simple. So I've just above the flap two-way switch, I've got another two-way switch. I always use this air brake on the right of my thrust lever left HOTAS, and I'm going to have the up motion as air brake off, down motion as air brake on. Kapow. That's that done, and it's super simple. That is everything that I want bound to my left HOTAS. Now we're going to go to the right HOTAS. Let's start with the triggers. So fire weapon as trigger 1. These sticks usually have more than one trigger in different places on the head of the joystick. So I'm going to go right HOTAS here, double click, weapon fire as trigger 1. Boom. Next we're going to go to trigger 2, and we're going to set that to weapon release. There it is, weapon release. This will drop the bombs and fire the shrike and do whatever else. Right HOTAS, and that's going to be trigger 2. Okay. Next we're going to go for the trim. So let's search in here, trim, and we've got our usual commands. Now I don't use rudder trim, I never see any need for it. I use left, right, up and down. So I've got a 4-way hat switch on the very top right of my right control stick, right HOTAS, and I'm going to make the associated up, down, left and right movements of the trim. So left wing down, left movement, nose down, down movement, nose up, up movement of that switch, and the right movement of that switch. So that's all my trim set up. Next is going to be my target designator. So I'm going to go still in search. I'm going to go target space designator. The target designator up, left, down, right. If we don't have access to this at the moment on the Hawk, we will be getting it soon. I haven't investigated full enough, but it's something you will need. So I've got a 4-way hat switch again on the top right of the joystick, right HOTAS, but just slightly below the previous one, the trim one, and we're going to set the different commands. So down, the down action on it, left, the left action on it, right, the right, and up, the up action on it. Boom. That's that done, nice and easy. Next we've got another 4-way switch on the left head of the control stick right HOTAS, and it's what I usually use for my weapon selection. So let's get cannon. No, that doesn't work. That's not what I want. I want armament. There we go. Armament. Okay, so there's some armament things here. Now these can all be set as, these are all switches that are clickable on the cockpit behind the stick, but I just find it a bit easier to have some of the commonly used ones on the HOTAS as well. So gun ready safe toggle I like to have as the usual gun selection switch, which is my on the left head of the joystick. Got another 4-way switch. I like to have it in the down position on all of my aircraft apart from the Hornet, because I've run out of buttons with the Hornet. And the left and right movements of this 4-way switch I like to have as armament master mode selector. It's kind of a turny knob. You can turn it clockwise or counterclockwise, and rather than actually clicking on it down there when you're in combat, I like to have it as the left and right of this 4-way hat switch that we're talking about. So I want to go clockwise, I want to go right, I want to go counterclockwise, I'm going to go the left of this switch. Okay, nearly there. Next, wheel brakes. So let's try just brake. Oopsie. Wheel brake on there. I've got another kind of trigger at the very base bottom of the control stick right HOTAS. I always have as my wheel brake. Bosh. And that's it. That's my Hawk setup. Okay. So that's the skeleton of commands. There may be stuff added later on where we need to add extra commands on, or you might just want to add extra commands anyway. But that's your basic skeleton. If you set that stuff up, you're good to fly and use almost all the weapons, everything I've tried so far anyway. Okay, I hope that helps, and see